Okay, welcome to the latest Highland League Weekly panel, where we're going to discuss, between myself, Ryan Crowell, and Paul Third, all of the action from the Brechin Highland League, all of the results from the Brechin Highland League on Saturday. 9 games took place. This panel is taken from our main Highland League Weekly show, which is available over on the Press and Journal website and also features highlights from 2 matches, as well as a feature on Clyde and their new signings this week. To watch the full version, you need to be a subscriber to the Press and Journal website. You can do that at the moment for just £1. That'll get you 3 months of access, which I think is a pretty good deal. But yes, the first game we're going to discuss, Fraserburgh 0, Brechin City 0 from Bellslea on Saturday. It was a nip-tuck game, wasn't it, Paul? Only probably 2, as Mark Cowie said, the Fraserburgh manager. 2 chances, big chances in the game for either side. There was Connor Wood's back post header that he somehow managed to put over the bar after a good cross from Scott Barber for Fraserburgh. Dale Robertson then lets the ball squirm through his legs instead of finishing it off from, 5 yards for Brechin City. But a point apiece, probably fair?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, the Connor Wood header, I think as we say in the North East, it's 50 pence he'd hit the back post, isn't it? He's got to put it in. It actually looks harder to miss it. Yeah. So fair play in one respect. And yeah, Dale Robertson, fresh air swipe. It's there, a tap in. But yeah, I think a draw was a fair result. And I think both managers are justifiably quite happy with that. It's been a good week for Fraserburgh after a tough first couple of results. To go up and beat Bucky in their own patch, and then the team that finished runners-up, to push them all the way, I think is a decent 4-point return out of 6. Likewise, Brechin don't enjoy playing Fraserburgh, so I think going to Bellslea and coming away with a point and maintaining your unbeaten start of the season is a pretty decent return. Patrick Craig will be happy with that as well.
It would be ludicrous to say that Fraserburgh were ever out of the title race, at such an early stage. But as you say, after a slow start, they have kind of now made up for that by picking up points that, 4 points against 2 of their main title rivals?
Well, the flip side is, let's say those 2 results had gone the other way, you'd be now having a completely different discussion about Fraserburgh and what's possible for them this season. So yeah, I mean, it's a gut check when the chips are down and you've got to get a result. Can you do it? And yeah, they've stepped up and taken 4 points out of 6. That's what you need to be doing if you want to be up there.
One slightly contentious moment in the match, and made more confusing by the fact that both teams appeared to be appealing afterwards. For me, certainly when I watched the highlights for the first time. But in the opening period, high ball comes over the top. Brad Mackay, the Brechin defender, who had a great game, allows the ball to go past him, which means he's on the turn. Scott Barber, as he often does,
sniffing blood here. Yeah.
Smells blood. Goes to run beyond Brad Mackay. Gets there first. Brad Mackay goes to ground. Looks to take Scott Barber down. It's definitely outside the box. So this is
where we're still agreeing.
So the first issue of whether it's a penalty kick is moot. Now, as I'm unsure, hopefully you will see this in our footage by now, but the initial cut, there was no yellow card that you could see, but Brad Mackay was booked for that foul and Fraserburgh were awarded a free kick. Now, Brechin are claiming for a dive, presumably, on Scott Barber, which I don't think it is at all. Is there an argument that that's potentially, although Brad Mackay is going for the ball, a clear goal-scoring opportunity, it's outside the box, so there's no double jeopardy, could that potentially have been a red card?
Potentially, but that argument you're saying, is there an argument there? It's not one I'm willing to make, which might surprise a lot of people given my well-known leanings, but I think it's correct in terms of it's a free kick, correct in terms of it's a yellow card, and my rationale is Brad Mackay is making a legitimate effort to try and win the ball. I don't think he's looking to take Barber out with that action. I can see why, if it had been a red card, I think there's a bigger debate we're having there. Was that the right thing? But I think the referee he's used his judgment well there. For me, it's a yellow and nothing more.
So for you, it's a legitimate attempt to play the ball that is at issue here.
Yeah.
Okay then, a game clearly where a very early red card, 36 seconds I was told yesterday, for Martin United's Matthew McLean for that pull back on James Wallace had a massive bearing on a game between two really strong sides. Bro Rangers now the only team in the Brechin Highland League with a flawless record after 4 games. But yeah, the red card, first of all, probably the first thing we need to discuss. It's really early, it's a brave decision from the referee, but by the letter of the law, James Wallace is through, the ball's at miles ahead of him, he's got the ball in his feet, he's one-on-one with the keeper, there's enough space to get a shot away, he's outside the box, so there's no double jeopardy as we discussed in the previous game. And Matthew McLean, he hauls him back.
No attempt to win the ball. That's what I'm sticking with my argument for the second incident.
I mean, I spoke to Stuart Anderson yesterday, the Formartine manager, and it wasn't like he was too, frustrated individually with Matthew McLean. I mean, it's probably easy just to instinctively do that, but it's a red card, isn't it?
It is, every day of the week, including Sundays. When we first saw the incident, but I don't think you can have any complaints. It's clever play from Mackenzie, I think it was, and yeah, just
James Wallace.
Oh, sorry, James, and rash on the defender's part. He just puts a hand on him, and as we know, the players know what they're going to do in that situation, and he gives the referee a decision to make.
Obviously, that leads to a change in game plan from Formartine. They go into sort of like a back 4, midfield 4, and just try and keep it really tight. They actually did well.
Yeah.
Brora get a goal, but then it's kind of like at that point, Formartine really come into the game, and then they get a goal back, and it's 1-1, and you're thinking they've done well to have the score like this. But then there's just that there's that demoralising moment when it goes to 2-1, and the sort of holding out. You're back behind again, and that just kind of seemed to be when the house of cards kind of toppled over.
As I said, I did the commentary for this one, and it was, the phrase I used was floodgates opened, and it was. I think it's 4 goals in 6 minutes, all told, and suddenly you go from 1-1, digging in for a point, to we're 5-1 down, game's gone, now you're damage limitation. And that sounds a silly phrase to say when it's 5-1, but you're still looking at a good 25 minutes to go at that point, and you're thinking this could be horrible. To be fair to them, Formartine dug deep, kept going, they get a goal back themselves, but yeah, Broder go up and round it off with a 6th and a very good win. But yeah, Formartine's fate was sealed very early in that one, ultimately.
And it is a difficult place to be with 10 men. Like you see from Brora, 6 different scorers for their 6 goals. Yeah. The way they knock it about. You've got, one of the goals, is it Mark Nicholson's goal or Colin Williamson's goal? The other, it's across from a defender as well as a defender scoring. So you've got everyone getting in on the act, and if you're a man short, that overload can be difficult to deal with. I spoke to Sid Mackay yesterday, the Brora Rangers manager, and I think he was in agreement with something that I sort of raised, that when you looked at Brora's opening fixtures, they were flawless after 3 games. They've had a summer rebuild, but those first 3 games are probably games you would have expected them to win. Formartine United was the first big test of this new Brora Rangers side. They've passed it with flying colours. Obviously, there's the caveat of Formartine going down to 10 men, but if you're Brora, you're top of the league, 22 goals after 4 games, only conceded 3. I mean, it's too early to know how things will end up, but things are looking good at the moment.
Yeah, there's going to be tougher tests ahead. Not every potential challenger is going to be a man down after 36 seconds, as was the case. But we talk about this every season at the start. You've got to make hay while the sun shines. There's no time for easing into a season and getting up and running. And the teams that get their noses in front early tend to stay up there. And Brora will be looking to do that, because if you look at last season, they were involved in so many things, other competitions. They had games postponed, and it led to them playing catch up. I think they had 7 or 8 games fewer than the teams at the top they'd played at one point. So that puts a huge stress on any team, no matter who you are. So for Brora to be getting points on the board early tells you it's going to be a different season for them this year, I think.
Yep. Okay, well, let's move on to the games that we didn't have cameras at the weekend. First and foremost, we'll start with Bankside 4, Nairn County 0. Bankside gets 3 wins for them. They've only had that disappointing 0-0 draw against Lossiemouth. It was actually a goalless opening period here. It took until Clyde went off at half-time. Unsure if that's a continuance of the fitness issues he's been having. Scott Mill came on at half-time for Bankside. He got a double, and then there were further goals from Mark Gilmore and Mark Reynolds. Spoke to Mark Reynolds yesterday. He was talking about how he still feels as a new player that he's still gelling in the team. There are other players that have maybe moved up from the juniors or new signings. You look at something maybe like Ian Vigers, who's on the bench on Saturday, still gelling into the Bankside team. But, you know, at this early point, they've got 3 wins from 4. They're still unbeaten. They're sitting second in the table, I think, Bankside at the moment. So, you know, if they can raise those levels and, you know, the performances keep improving, then again, they're another team that are looking pretty rosy at the moment.
Well, they're the ones I tipped in the opening episode of the season. I felt had a real strong case for being champions this season. I'm not seeing anything so far that's making me doubt that they're going to be up there, that's for sure. It's interesting to me because Lachie McLeod has been such a key player for them since they came in to the Highland League, and he is an excellent striker, but they're able to mix it up. You've got Andy Hunter there as well. You can go a big man up top, you can go someone maybe a bit more mobile. They've got very good creative players behind the attackers, and there's a threat throughout the team. Here's Mark Reynolds, your centre half's now going up and chipping in goals, his first in the Highland League, I think it is. So yeah, they're a strong team in every department.
Nairn, obviously, in midweek, they'd won against Clacknacuddon, but was it the previous weekend, Brechin City, they hadn't really laid a glove on them in a 3-0 home loss. Here, they've obviously held Bankside for a half, but then when you see the final scoreline, it looks pretty comprehensive. And I mean, that's what Nairn need to be able to do this season, isn't it? They need to start challenging if they want to be among those top sides. As well, you know, they showed great signs last season under Sid Mackay, and Rothie is coming now. It needs to be tighter in scoreline, doesn't it? It needs to be closer to them.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Nairn and I put Huntley in the same category as we'll come to in a minute. It's always about the head-to-heads. That's the difference between breaking into the top 6. I see both of them actually being just a little bit outside that traditional top 6, if you like, from recent seasons. And yeah, the need to find a way of even picking up a point, just not losing, because that's when gaps get bigger and then you're playing catch up. And as we know, the teams at the top don't tend to slip up too often.
Yeah. Okay, so we're now moving on to Huntly, who were just mentioned. Lost 1-0 at home to Buckie Thistle on Saturday. Jack McIver penalty was the difference. Second half penalty, I believe. It was 51 minutes? Yeah, 51 minutes. That's Buckie's first win of the season, first points of the season after 3 games. The champions having lost their first 2. Also, Lewis McKinnon up and running in the Highland League as a manager as well. I suppose if you're Buckie, it's a tight win. It's only 1 goal. But Christie Park is a place that I think it was before that game at the weekend, I think Huntly were 9 games unbeaten at Christie Park in the league. It's a difficult place to go. You've won against a reasonably strong team. You've got your first points on the board. I mean, yeah, you'd like to score more goals, but it's a great weekend.
It is. I mean, let's be honest, this was an early acid test for Lewis McKinnon and his Buckie players. Nobody would have predicted opening the season with 2 league defeats back to back. That doesn't happen often at Buckie at any point in a season, let alone the first 2 games. So yeah, they're playing catch up already. So to go to Christie Park, dig in and pick up the 3 points is a huge early season boost for them, and they'll really be looking to kick on now. For Huntly, I'm sure Colin Charles was frustrated, like we've just said about Nairn. It's those head-to-heads, and it's the narrowest of margins, and just coming out on the wrong side of it.
I mean, Huntly did have their chances before Jack McIver's penalty. I think both keepers were denied. Huntly's goalie, who's making his debut, I think, Jack Robertson, stopped efforts from Andy McCaskill and Cohen Ramsey, and Mark Ridgers in the Buckie goal stopped an effort in the first half from Angus Grant. I think Brodie Allen also had a late chance for Huntly to potentially equalise. So I mean, you couldn't say it was a bad day for them. Just unfortunate, probably come out on the wrong side of that result. Rothie 0, Keith 1. Keith, another team getting their first win of the new Brechin Highland League campaign. Nathan McKeown's 55th minute goal was the difference. Craig Ewan after the game said that he felt in the first half that Huntly were really struggling with the wind, and that they just kept sort of launching the ball down the park and it kept going out of play for opposition goal kicks. But they just needed someone to be the difference maker, really. It sounded like Liam Duncan had a hand in the goal, got himself to the byline, cut the ball back, and Nathan McKeown's there to finish it off. But again, it's just the performances can come, but the results first and foremost. You just need to get those points on the board.
Of course you do, and if you're Craig Hugh and you're looking going, I don't want plaudits for pushing a team and maybe losing 3-2 or 3-1, but we've been in the game for long periods. I want to win. I want points on the board. So that's a very good result for the Maroons after a tough start. Rothie, I think Richard Hastings is feeling like the final third's not quite clicking for him yet. That's maybe something he'll look to try and address in the coming weeks. But yeah, Rothie seem to be the team for me that are. They're the team that are losing just by that slim margin. I know there was that heavy defeat to Formartine, but the other 3 games have been quite close, quite nip and tuck. So they're not far away. They just need to have a bit more of a threat in the final third.
Yeah, I feel like they need to get points on the board. I think they're second bottom after their first 4 games. They did have chances. It was similar to Huntly. Gregor MacDonald fired wide for them early on. I mean, Keith were having chances as well, but there was also a Samuel Adams header that went straight at Craig Reid from close range. They probably should have finished off. Wick Academy 0, Devon Vale 1. Another instance of a 1-0 win, getting a first victory of the season for the team that got it. Vale, Oleg Gligos was their difference maker. I spoke to Gary Wood yesterday and he said he was just about to take Oleg off when he scored a great goal by the sounds of things into the right top corner, I believe it was. But yeah, I mean, anyone would be happy with going up to Wick Academy, especially Wick have looked decent. And, you know, as we've said in previous shows, was only 4 teams that won up at Harmsworth Park last season, and Devon Vale have gone and won at the start of this season.
That's a great result for the Banthers, but in a way, I think it's been coming. They played well against Fraserburgh and get a point at Bellslea, so going on the road's not going to be something they're going to shy away from this season. And they've recruited well. They struggled last year. I think they've struggled the last few years, actually, but we're seeing signs that they're a team that's going to try and push on this year. I mean, they're not going to be, I don't think they're going to be a top 7 or 8, but maybe just creeping in to that mid-table position might be where they can be, but they're looking okay for me. Wick, they'll be frustrated. Gary Manson will be very unhappy to drop points at home, but they've made a decent start overall. I think this is a blip, I think, from Wick, and Manson will be looking to make sure that is the case.
Yeah, Ben Hermiston was man of the match for Devon Vale, another great performance from their summer signing. Was joking with Gary yesterday about, have you seen Ben Hermiston's hair? I know Callum doesn't like when I cheapen Highland League Weekly list, but have you seen it?
I can't say I have, but I'm aware I'll be looking after we're finished.
He's Australian, right? And he's got this kind of like curly,
old
school mullet. No, we'll get it up on screen, but it's tremendous. It's like exactly the hair that you'd expect a young Australian man to have. Anyway, let's move on to Inverary Locos 2, Clattenacudden 0. Locos continued, but it's been a decent start for them. They lost to Brechin in midweek, but goals from Jay Halliday in the first half and Logan Johnson after the break got them their win against the Clattenacudden team that have looked okay in some of their games since the start of the season. Sounded like Locos had other chances as well. Joe Mallon saving a few of them in the goals. Just a bit of foreshadowing to the Joe Mallon feature with the rest of Clack that will be coming up later on. But yeah, a good result for Locos, probably similar to the last game in that if you're Connor Gethins, you're probably left frustrated by that one as well.
Will be. It's on the road. Again, it's a nip-tuck game, not a lot in it, and you've come away with nothing. But Locos have started well. If you think about where they were last season, they toiled for a long time before getting going. I think, is it 1 defeat now in their opening game so far? So, Yeah, I mean, they're up there. It's interesting to see how long they can stay there. They will have tougher challenges ahead. Coming back to that theme of trying to get something from the big six, if you like. I think their only defeat was Brechin in midweek. So if they will take points off teams, I'm pretty confident of that as the season goes on. But yeah, they're off to a decent start for me.
Two more games to talk about. Turriff United 1, Lossiemouth 0. The first one, Rhys McKeown hit a last-minute winner for Turriff in this one. Sounded like it was one for the purists at the Hacks, let's say. Lossiemouth were organised by the sounds of things, Eddie Walecki Black's team. But Turriff managed to break the deadlock very late on. Timmy Fatona was singled out by our correspondent.
I'm looking forward to seeing him.
For special praise for coming on, using his pace to change the game apparently, and that ended with him, getting free on the right and crossing to Rhys McKeown to score the winner. I mean, again, it's another third game in a row we've said this, and we've probably said it about the other ones so far, but it sounds like a tight affair, and if you can't play your absolute best, as Turriff manager Warren Cummins didn't think his team did, winning the game's brilliant.
At the last minute, what a time to do it. It's interesting. I mean, here's Lossie losing in the last minute, having won in the last minute, I think, in their previous game. Yeah. Lossie are going to be a tough nut to crack on the road, I think. It's a common theme we're seeing already, that they shut up shop and they're hard to break down away from home. Turriff, by the same token, they had a good season last year, and they're not showing that that's going to be any different this year. I think they're still going to be a formidable outfit. They've beaten Formartine already, which was a good result. They're decent at home, and I think United could be up there.
As Warren Cummins pointed out, 7 points from 9 in the last week, and the 2 points they dropped, they were 2-0 up against Forest, and then sort of capitulated in the second half. So yeah, the final game to discuss, Strathspey Thistle 1, Forest Mechanics 6. Strathspey remain bottom of the league and pointless.
It's concerning a little, isn't it?
I mean, that's 4 games now Strathspey have played, right in saying that? Yeah.
Conceded 20.
And we were obviously expecting a much more resolute and potentially threatening Strathspey Thistle this season than we've seen. They made a lot of changes, brought in a lot of players. I think they thought they maybe had a better formula going into this season, but you've just not seen it so far. It was 6-1, but they were 6-0 down at half time.
At home.
And it sounded like a little bit of those, like one of those where the first goal goes in. Like, apparently at the start, Steve McDonald, the Forest boss, said that Strathspey were the best team, or the better team in the first 12 minutes of the game. But then Forest get a free kick, and the free kick goes in. And at that point, the heads go down, the game just changes, and before you know it, it's 4. Then it looks like they're getting to half-time at 4, and then Forest get a penalty. Matt Jameson scores it. So you're like, it's 5-0 at half-time. But then they still find a way to concede a second Kyle McLeod goal he'd already scored by half-time. Just in that sort of, the very much dying moments of the half, it manages to go to 6, and then, to get it was Dylan Lawrence, I think, with a consolation in the second half. But, it didn't sound like they really threatened too much after the break.
It's tough. I'm disappointed. As you were saying, and I was expecting more for the Granton Jags this year. We may still get more, but 20 goals conceded in 4 games is not a good start. We can't get away from that. They're the only team to get a point on the board. As we've just gone through with recapping the rest of the weekend, every game is competitive, with the exception of Formartine getting somebody sent off. And I don't see Strathspey offering that same resilience or competitive kind of display yet. And I think with the rest of the teams, they're going to slowly but surely edge away. It's a 3-point gap already, and it's going to be a long, hard season unless something changes quickly, I think.
I mean, given the changes they've made, maybe it will be a slow burn, but it's like, can't be too slow a burn, because, if they don't start motoring until January. It might be too late. Okay, well, let's have a look at we've talked about them enough, the Brechin Highland League standings as they are at the moment. That's it then for this Highland League Weekly panel reflecting on all of Saturday's results. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Thanks to Paul for joining me. If you have and you're thinking to yourself, I'd also like to watch 2 highlights games every Monday, as well as perhaps a feature on the Brechin Highland League and its various colourful clubs and characters, you can find that show. It exists, the main Highland League Weekly show. It's over on the Press and Journal website every Monday evening, and to get access to it you need to be a subscriber. But there's further good news, because to become a Sports Pack subscriber on the Press and Journal website at the moment, it is just £1. £1 sterling for 3 months of access. Can't say fairer than that, can you, Paul?
Can't even get a coffee for that these days.
No. So, if that interests you, please sign up. If it doesn't, we'll still be posting the analysis panels in isolation here, so keep an eye out for the next one, which will be next Monday. The man behind the camera tells me. In the meantime, you can also sign up to our various social media platforms. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, at HighlandLW. We're also on Facebook. Our Facebook group is handily titled Highland League Weekly, so there's a thriving community there of Highland League fans and minds, so join up to that. Please also sign up to the Press and Journal's Highland League newsletters, which will get our latest general Highland League content into your email inbox every week. There's a link to do that below this video. Till we see you next time though, wherever you choose to watch our mad ramblings, please enjoy the football, whichever games you're watching.